For those of you who don't know me, my name's Todd Tresidder. My site is financialmentor.com, and hopefully you're here to hear about how I tripled my traffic by deleting a third of my content. Show of hands, how many people would like to double or triple their traffic to their site? Kind of a no-brainer question, isn't it? So how would you do that? Ideas, anyone? How would you triple your traffic to your site? It's hard, isn't it? You could become the next Pinterest superstar, possibly. Or you could double or triple the number of pillar posts to your site. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do it. And I happened to stumble across a way here doing a content audit. I didn't really know what I was getting into when I did it, and it did triple the traffic to my site, so that is a real claim. People have been asking me last couple days, did it really work that way? And yes, it did. So what is a content audit? A lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people have negative connotations with a content audit. The word audit brings up concerns. I'm going to frame it in a different way to try to make this presentation really intuitive for all of you. Most of us here are writers or we're content managers. And so on the slide here, we've got an article from my site, a little bit of a confusing slide here. We've got a book cover, and we've got the front page to my site right now. So since we're all writers here, would anybody publish a rough draft of a post? Anyone? No one. When you write a post, you write it, you get your stream of thought, you get it down, you edit it, and you edit it, and you edit it again before you finally have something polished that's tight that you publish and put out to the public. Same thing with a book. Has anybody in here written a book? Okay, as you probably know, the writing portion of the book is one of the smallest portions of the entire project. The editing is actually larger task than the actual writing task. And so it's the same thing with your site. And this was the insight I got once I was really deep into a content audit. I didn't really understand it, but now I understand it is really nothing more than editing your site. If you think about your site, it's really a rough draft as it sits right now. That's what mine was. You know, you think about it, you wrote it just like a book, right? You started with your first article, just like you'd start with the first chapter. You've been accumulating the content over time, and it just sits there, and it's never been edited. You've never been through it as a single cohesive project, just like you would with a book. And so once I understood that, then the content audit thing really became an edit, and the whole thing became very intuitive. So what is a content and brand audit, and why would you want to do it? One of the reasons is you want to improve your visitor experience. If you think about it, if you put a book out and you hadn't edited it, it would be a lousy reader experience. I'm not going to say your sites are a lousy reader experience, obviously, but you would definitely improve the reader experience of your site by going through and editing it very tightly. The other thing that I stumbled into on this, I didn't realize it when I did it, was that you can substantially increase the traffic to your site. And as you'll see in this presentation, I'm not alone in this. This is happening pretty much across the board to people that are following this process. The other thing that it does is it transforms how you manage your content going forward from here. Once you understand the content audit process, you'll change how you look at what you put on your site and how you manage your site going forwards. It's a very powerful process. Now, what I've done in these slides is these slides actually perform as checklists for you. You get the slides as part of being in FinCon. You'll get these presentations, so you don't have to take a lot of extensive notes. This is what actually provides checklists for you to do your content audit. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through some of the deadly sins of content publishing. So show of hands, how many of you have old articles that are no longer relevant to your brand? Yeah. How many of you have old sponsored posts just sitting there that don't have to sit there any longer? Okay. How many of you have clarified and narrowed the focus of your writing since you began? Yeah, a lot of us. How many of you have old content that needs updating? Maybe your writing style has changed, you've learned more. Yeah. How many of you have small posts? So a grouping of small posts, like let's say debt consolidation, you have 4 or 5 different posts on debt consolidation, and you've written them over time, they're different aspects of the subject, and they could be combined into a large category killer pillar post. So small posts that could be combined into a larger post. How many of you have menus that are messy because you've added stuff over time? You didn't start with the site in mind and you've been adding things over time. How many of you have some of your best stuff buried from your early days in a time-dated hierarchy? Yeah. How many of you have content in the wrong location? Like in my site, I foolishly published a lot of my best content as pages and they should have been posts and categories. Does anybody have stuff that's in the wrong categories or in the wrong section of your site? How about interlinking, where you have old posts, really quality old posts, and you've got this newer stuff, and the old stuff isn't linking to the newer stuff because you've never gone back and changed the interlinking. Show of hands? Yeah. Old posts, really good stuff that don't have Pinterest images, Pinterest-friendly images, or images at all. Okay, another one is your database gets cluttered with time. You can have multiple revisions of old posts. You can have old drafts sitting there. You can have old media files. You could have old photo files, image files. Anybody have that problem? That clutters your database and slows down your entire site. Another one is old content that's not structured properly with proper H1, H2, bullet points, all that type of stuff. Anybody have that problem with old content? Good. How about images without the alt tag or the title tag? Again, what I'm giving you is a list of stuff you can do when you go through your content audit. Okay, these are all things that you can put on a checklist. So any old images that don't have alt tags or title tags? How about old carnivals? Remember the days of blog carnivals where we were trying to gather links? Yeah, we got a lot of laughs on that one. Anybody got those sitting around inside their site? Yeah, okay. How about image designs that aren't consistent? You know, you have a little bit from one designer, you got a little bit from another person over here. It's not a consistent branding in your images so that when someone's on your site, they have an inconsistent experience. Anybody have that? Okay. And inconsistent SEO. Anybody have that where you've learned SEO over time and your old stuff isn't as strong? All right. Inline HTML formatting. I know I made that mistake in the early days before I really got handy with CSS. I had a lot of inline HTML formatting, which is not a good thing to have. Does anybody have that? Okay. Articles that aren't reinforcing your brand. So you used to write about different subjects, but now you've got more clear about your brand, so now you've got some off-brand content in there. Does anybody have that? And then inconsistent social media conventions. Right now with Facebook, if your image isn't sized properly and it's not specified within your post, if somebody goes to add it to Facebook, did you know that the images can get cut off incorrectly? Same thing with Twitter. So anyway, Pinterest, there's certain conventions for Pinterest images. And then broken links too. You can have broken links. When's the last time you checked for broken links? So there's a lot of things you can look at. And so if you're feeling a little hesitant right now, there's a good reason for it. A content audit can be a lot of work. But doubling and tripling your traffic in any way is a lot of work. There's no way around it. So if you're feeling kind of a sigh as I went through this, like, oh, this is a lot of stuff. Anybody doing that? Yeah. And so I was the same way. I blundered into the content audit. It's actually kind of a cutting edge thing right now. Some of the biggest name sites are just doing it. We've got Pat Flynn here. Pat's just starting his content audit. Copyblogger Media, Copyblogger, if you follow their site, they just started a few months ago on their content audit. HubSpot's been working on it for a while. So this is a growing trend. What sites are realizing is that they must edit their site just like they edit their content, the overall site. I blundered into it because I had what I call a lot of yeah buts. I kept building up my business plans, and every time I looked at my next step, I'd go, yeah, but I need to get this done first. And then I'd think about, well, I want to move over here, but yeah, but I need to get this thing done first. And I kept running into these yeah buts, and finally I just got sick of it, and I said, I just need to clean my site up. I need to get this stuff figured out once and for all and build a solid base from which I can build my business on. And so this is my old site, back with about 2,000 readers in the list, and post-content audits up to about 20,000 now. And again, my traffic did triple. This is the newer site. When I did it, I didn't have any idea that it would result in a substantial increase in traffic, but it's completely correlated, and it's not just me. Google actually likes sites that have been through a content audit. This is a coaching client of mine, Telaine Medaner. Her site is lifecoach.com. Obviously, to have a URL like this, she's been at this game for quite a while. She's a best-selling author as well. When I was working with her on her business plans, we kept running into the yeah buts for her also. She had multiple infrastructures within her site. It was really a mess. And we finally committed the content audit. She hired a team to help her with it. And here's her quote: Todd's brand and content audit strategy was counterintuitive, but it was right. I reduced total articles by more than 50% by combining small blog posts into larger ones, and we doubled our traffic in just the first 2 months. Yeah, and I had a similar result. Mine was tripling in about 2 months. She's since grown considerably more since that because she's continued to go through the content audit process. This was just her first pass. Yes, quick question.
So, but what about, blog posts that have been indexed and then now they're showing up on
Absolutely,
both links.
I'm going to be covering that. So she asked, what about blog posts that have been indexed and need to be, what do you do with that? And so I'll be explaining that as part of the presentation coming up here in just a minute. Here's from Moz Blog. Moz Blog's been writing a little bit about content audits. In one of their posts, they talked about increased traffic. Another one, they talked about 8 times lead generation. HubSpot. HubSpot talks about 106% increase in traffic, 2 times lead generation. And this isn't just some of the big name sites, okay? Robert Farrington in a FinCon Facebook post we were talking about some stuff, and Robert wrote, I'm with Todd. I purged about 30% of my blog posts, the very weak and the irrelevant ones. Honestly, when I started, I had no idea my focus or direction. 5 years changes that. Deleting my posts really helped boost my traffic, just like Todd said. Stephanie O'Connell, who was just speaking in here right beforehand, my traffic went way up when I deleted content, but my Alexa suffered. I'd rather have the traffic, obviously, but it's always kind of bugged me. The Alexa's not correlated. I've never seen anybody else have that problem, so I think that was just a coincidence in issues. But the traffic growing, pretty much everybody's experiencing it that I've talked to. Now, this cheery picture is about killing your darlings, right? Because a lot of people mistake, you know that from Stephen King and his book on writing, right? He talks about killing your darlings. And I'm talking about deleting your traffic, which is killing your darlings, right? And a lot of people mistake the content audit. They think that it's about killing your darlings. It's about deleting, and people are very attached to their content. But it's much more than that. So anyway, it's just a fun picture for that. So what is it? If it's more than just deleting your content, what is it? So what is a content? If you walk away with 2 ideas from this presentation, just 2 central ideas. One of them is that the new SEO is quality, not quantity. Okay, the new game is all about quality. So that's one key point. The other one is that this is just a macro edit. When you get that this is a macro edit, you realize how necessary it is. You would never publish a post without editing. Why do you have a site that you haven't gone through and done an extensive edit on? It just doesn't make business sense. So those are your 2 big walkaways from the presentation. So the new SEO is quality versus quantity. And so in another thread on FinCon Facebook, J.D. Roth, I don't even put his name on here because he's so well known to all of us, right? So there's J.D. Roth. He says, I'm so confused. Why on earth would you delete your old blog posts? It seems to defeat the entire purpose of having a blog. Okay, and so what I want to talk about, it was a great comment because a lot of people share this, right? I mean, JD was speaking for a lot of people. So what we have, and I've talked to JD about this, what we had was old world versus new world viewpoint. In the days when JD built Get Rich Slowly, he was publishing 12 times a week. He was posting 12 times a week. He did 2 posts a day on the weekdays, and he did 1 post a day on the weekends. 12 posts a week. In those days, there was very few financial bloggers, and there wasn't this avalanche of financial content that we're all competing against. It's no longer about quantity. In that day, it was about quantity. There was only a few guys. They were all interlinking. Social media hadn't even taken off. So everybody was interlinking everybody's posts. The more you got out, the more long-tail keywords you got. That's how you grew. So that was that day. The new world is about quality. As I said, it's about quality, not quantity. That's the new game in town. And you're going to see that in quite a few presentations. I've been talking to several presenters here, and this is just an interesting coincidence. Will's sitting over here, and he and Paula have dropped their average blog post, or raised their average blog post length from 800 words to 3,000. She went from once or twice a week?
Once or twice a week.
Yeah, once or twice a week down to twice a month. Same thing with Jeff Rose, friends with Jeff Rose. He's raised his average post length, dropped the post frequency, he's seeing better results. So this is a phenomenon you're seeing across the board. People are publishing less and they're publishing higher quality stuff because that's how you stand out. Okay? Google's never made it a secret. Google has always said overtly they want to return the absolute best result for any given search query. And so why does a content audit work? I mean, it's kind of a strange thing. And so with anything with Google, nobody really knows. We know it's working, right? We know it's working, but we're at best going to be guessing how it works or why it works. And so there's some theories. Some of them are more logical than others. One is that it improves the ratio of high-quality content to junk. There's a theory that Google has some sort of general quality algorithm based on the average quality score of the stuff in your site. Okay, so that's one theory in there. By deleting the thin junk, you're increasing the average quality score of your site overall. Another concept floating around, and this one makes total sense when you think about it, you're consolidating your page rank through 301 redirects, which partially answers your question. What you're doing is when you're deleting your thin content, anybody that's been writing for more than a couple years has so much related content that there's almost always something that you can 301 redirect a deleted post to a current or existing post. And so when you do that, you're 301 redirecting, you're transferring all your link juice, your page rank, all that stuff over to that other post. You're concentrating it into fewer posts. Another one is you have a more focused site. Google has latent semantic indexing, so they have a very good handle on what your site is about. So your job is to help them understand what your site is about. When you get clear on your brand, you focus your content, they know what to rank you for. Okay, so by doing a content audit, you focused your site, they know better what to rank you for. This is well known since 2011 that they have a freshness component to their algorithm. And so when you're doing the content audit, you'll see the steps here in a moment. Part of that is republishing content and all these other things. And so it affects the freshness component, as well as you get better click-through rates when you have a more fresh date or a more recent date on your content, because people generally want fresher content. And so there's a freshness component that increases your traffic. But in the end, those are all Google things. This guy is your user, by the way. And so there's two layers to this, right? You've got the Google, the search, but you've also got the user experience that you're dealing with. And so when you do a content audit, you're dramatically improving your user experience, which just happens to play over to Google as well, because when a user has a great experience, they have more page views, and they spend more time on your site. And so that also affects your quality. All right, so now that's the general framework of why you do it, right, and what it's generally about. Now we're going to go into how you do it. Okay, so this is the content decision framework. And I'm going to start with a 30,000-foot overview. What you want to do is take every piece of content on your site, every article, every post, page, however you want to call it, and you're going to organize it into 4 groups. Okay, 4 groups. The first one is keep. The second is improve. The third is consolidate. And the fourth is remove. So those are 4 groups, and every single page and post on your site will be organized or categorized according to one of those 4. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each one individually and give you the criteria by which you do it and the action steps that you do with anything that falls in that category, okay? And the first one I'm going to group them together in the interest of time because I'm trying to fit this all into 45 minutes. There's a lot to cover. So keep and improve are very closely related. And so we're going to put those together and then go through the process and you'll see how they relate. So pages and posts that you keep and improve, the first thing is they're valid and relevant to your brand, okay? They're optimized for your focus keyword. They're complete as is. They're good articles as is. You don't have to do a lot with them. And they have adequate traffic and social media attention to where they're a proper asset for your site. Okay, so if something falls into the keep or improve category, what do you do with it? The first thing you want to do is you want to edit it with new info. Bring it up to date. That's why you can republish it. You're bringing it up to date, making it current. Now, there's a bonus thing you can do, and you don't have to do this as part of a content audit, but if you care about conversion, this is really worth doing. There's a lot of research recently showing that if you do content-specific conversion goals, so again, using the example of debt consolidation, let's say you have a post on debt consolidation, maybe you offer a bonus for opt-in that says the 5-step process to debt consolidation, and you have it as a specialty opt-in bonus, and you build that when you're going through your content audit page by page, you can substantially increase your opt-ins. Okay, and that's a proven strategy. You can update the images on the post. You can go through the writing, make sure that the headline and the yes, Michael.
Sorry, separate question actually about the prior. If you're going to do an edit and a repost for freshness, like just thinking in terms of strictly WordPress, can I actually edit those posts and just hit an update, or do I actually need to like redate it back so that it doesn't just update something with timestamp data 2012? I actually have to make it 16.
Yeah, either is acceptable, and I will be going through that coming right up here. Okay, so you can. So the question was, do you need to can you just hit update, or do you have to redate it and then republish it? And so I'll cover that in just a second. The answer is you could do either. Okay, so you can bring in new images, current images, particularly if your images do not have consistent branding. Make sure that your title and your headline and your first paragraph are still really grabby. They pull the reader through. What I thought was grabby a few years ago doesn't grab me anymore. And so I've changed a lot of those. Go through the formatting. My formatting wasn't as good back then, and so checking the H1, H2s, make sure it's very scannable, make sure your images and your call-outs are structured right. Just make sure it fits current standards. The standards have really risen on the internet. You've got to stay pace with it. Check for content duplication. See if you've got related content that you could combine into a single post. Do you really want it to be a standalone post anymore? Go through and check for updating affiliate links. A lot of affiliate links might drop out of date. You can update internal links too, as I talked about earlier. Your old stuff won't be linking to your current stuff, so you've got to go through and check those links and make sure you've got linking throughout the site to pass the page rank. On my site, I had a lot of tag clutter. I didn't really understand tagging properly when I started the site, and so I used to go hog wild with tags and just tag anything that I could think about, thinking that was beneficial. Now I understand that I want tags that I use regularly, and so I've narrowed my tag clutter down quite a bit through the process. How many in here have Yoast SEO? Most people. It is the industry standard. If you don't have Yoast SEO, get it, and it's a free plugin. So you want to make sure you have the green light on Yoast SEO for it. Check the specifications in it, see if you're failing on anything, see if you can improve it. And then, Michael, we're going into your question. You can either hit it if you want to just keep the current post. If you got to be careful if you have date in your URL. You have to be very careful because that fundamentally changes the URL. If you don't have dated URLs, which I do not, you can either do it as you were saying about just hitting republish, or you can change the date. Now, the advantage of changing the date is it raises it up inside the RSS feed, goes back out to your readers again, which then can attract new links, new social media attention, which stacks on top of it and increases the value of that post. If you're going to do that, make sure you delete the old comments, because otherwise it looks out of date by seeing comments from years ago. So this is, again, Michael, where you're asking about to keep the same URL versus not, and when you talked about refresh traffic. Okay, so that was the first two categories, keep or improve. The next category is redoing content. Pardon me?
I thought it was consolidate.
Yeah, they're the same thing. I'm sorry. I just incorrectly changed the term. So yeah, thank you for catching that. Absolutely. Redo is the same thing as consolidate. You guys are excellent students. Thank you. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so why would you consolidate content? Because it's off-brand. You change your brand over time. Maybe you can rework it into something. So redo includes consolidate, by the way. Maybe it's a really good post. It's a really good post, but it needs to be reworked. Okay, you're just a better writer now. It was junk. Okay, but the topic is good. It's worth having. Okay, so here's another one. Good topic, bad quality. Common one. I don't have this on my site. I don't have review posts. A lot of people have review posts. They need to be updated every year. So that would be valid. And then this is where you're talking about consolidating, where you take several short posts on a single topic and combine them and create a pillar post. Why would you do that? That's the phenomenon of its increased rank. So in another discussion on FinCon Facebook, Jeff Rose talked about it, and he said, for those that, we had a little competition about who had the longest post, and people were joking, oh, Todd's going to have it, right? Because I'm known for writing long copy. And I actually came in second place. There was somebody else. I had almost 9,000 words for a post, and somebody else had 11,400 or something like that. So I ended up getting second place. But Jeff Rose added in on the discussion. He said, for those that have 4,000 word or longer posts, how have they performed for you? Rank high in search engines, share a bunch on social. For me, my two longest posts on my blog, the other was written for Forbes, currently rank in the top 3 for keywords I was targeting. Now you know why he changed his content strategy. As well, Robert Farrington joined in. He said, same here, Jeff. My longest posts do very well in search. Same is true for me. Anybody else having that experience? Pat, Will? Yes? Question.
I'm not sure if I should know this, but I don't know what it's called.
Thank you for asking. I just assumed. A pillar post is a core post to your site that really stands out for its quality. Typically, they're very long. They're very high quality. They take a stand on something. It's considered your pillar content, your core content. Yeah. Any other quick questions? Okay. So then it comes into the question which you had asked earlier. What do you do with it? Do you end up with a 404 or 301? And so I'm not going to assume you know a 404 or 301. A 404 error is when somebody comes to your site looking for something and it dumps you to a page that says, oops, we don't have this here anymore. Okay? A 301 redirects is a permanent redirect built into your site that says, oh, I'm looking for this, I'm going to send you over here, and it redirects you to another post. Okay? Now, like all things in SEO and all things in content, everything having to do with Google, there's controversy. And there's very smart people on both sides of the fence. So I have a definite opinion. As most of you know, I always have a definite opinion. So I have a definite opinion, which is towards the 301, but other people disagree with me and say 404 it, that it's authentic to do a 404. I feel you're wasting PageRank, you're wasting links, you're wasting social media juice not to do a 301 redirect. More importantly, it's a disservice to your reader. A 404 is a lousy reader experience. Why would you want to do that? Okay, so for me, I 301 redirect everything. Okay, and it worked for me. Yes, Will? I'm not real well versed on it. They never held water for me. The question was, what would be the argument for a 404? And I'm saying I'm not well versed on it. I read them at the time when I was trying to decide what I was going to do, and they didn't hold water with me. I just looked at it and said, it's a lousy reader experience. Why would I do it? Okay, it was something about authenticity, and you truly deleted it. Why are you trying to trick the search engines? Blah, 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 blah. I'll tell the story now because it relates to this. I was going to save it for later in the presentation. Little personal story on when I did this. I dumped 150 posts in one day. 150 posts in one day with 301 redirects, all in one day. And my site vanished from the search engines. Vanished from the search engines. Words that I had been on the top of page 1 for years, gone. I was like on page 12, page 14. I was in no man's land. And that was just on my best stuff. For the most part, I completely vanished. And then a week later, I reappeared exactly to the day. 1 week later, I reappeared stronger than ever. So stuff that was on page 5, I was the middle of page 2. Stuff that was on page 2.4, I was on page 1. Stuff that was middle of page 1, I was in the top 3. I mean, across the board, rankings improved. Yes, Michael? Do you even have to ask, right? I mean, I thought I blew it, right? No, I mean, I just cringed, right? And the only thing that I held on to was that I was focused. I don't play any SEO games, right? I mean, I just try to focus on reader experience, doing the right thing, and delivering the best result I can. And so I just held on to it and said, I did the right thing. I know I did the right thing. And I just kind of held on. And then 1 week later, the day it reappeared, and I went, mad, checked all my rankings and stuff, and I'm like, whew. I mean, yeah, I cringed. It was really a frightening time. So talking about republishing, there was a discussion on FinCon Facebook again, and all these people chimed in, helped out, added their viewpoints on it. HubSpot's also doing it quite frequently. It's part of their content management now. Overall, is they're regularly republishing content. You'll see Copyblogger doing it now. They're regularly republishing their old content. They've cited 106% average traffic bump on the stuff that they republish. Again, it's the freshness algorithm. They're shifting their publication date. Michael, answering your question, they're shifting their publication date to the new date, which makes it newer in the search ranking, or newer in the search results. So when you're looking at it, you're seeing a current date, so the content's current. You're more likely to click on it. In addition, they're getting new links and social shares because for most of your readers, if you think about it, most of my readers haven't seen my content from 5 years ago. It's great pillared content, in my humble opinion, right? And they should see it. And so for them, it's all new stuff. And so they're linking to it, they're sharing it, and that's adding value to all that content. So the final or fourth category is deleting. Okay, why would you delete? And I'm just going to rip through these quick in the interest of time. It's out of date. It's off-brand. It's irrelevant. Low quality. Short posts that you combine to pillars. So in that case, what you do is you would delete all but one. You would take your strongest post that you would keep, and you would combine everything into that strongest post, and you'd 301 redirect all the ones you delete into that one. Old sponsored posts, just get rid of them. Old roundup posts, they're great as a service at the time to your readers if they get value from it. They have no archival value. Get rid of them. They delete your brand. I'm sorry, dilute your brand. And then old blog carnivals, why are they still sitting there, right? So I have to get on the recording. So no, that's fine. So people are asking, what's the old blog carnivals? Years ago, they used to run these things called blog carnivals, and they were basically link fests. So people would host them on their site. It would be a huge link out, and everybody would link back to that site. And it was basically a link fest to spread link juice among bloggers. Google got on it and actually cracked down on it, and mysteriously, you don't see them around anymore. Okay? So those are the 4 categories that we've covered about what you would do with your posts, right? You want to go through and categorize each post according to those 4 categories. So how are you going to do this? What's the process by which you can actually implement this? Because obviously there's some complication to it. There's some different schools of thought, quantitative versus qualitative. You can go nuts with this stuff in terms of quantitative. I've seen some research online where these guys do stuff I can't figure out. So not surprisingly though, it's usually firms that sell the service. Okay? When I went through this, what I did was I first got really clear on my brand. So the first step is your qualitative. You want to get very clear on what your brand stands for, what you want your writing to be about, what you want your reader experience to be about. Get really clear on that, and you'll see all the stuff that's not relevant. And then you can add the most basic amounts of quantitative, things like traffic to the post and social shares, things like that. When I did that, there was maybe, if I can remember, there was maybe 3 posts on my site that caused me to even have a hesitation. Like I even had to think about it. Once I got clear on my brand and looked at just basic stats, it was slam dunk clear what I was doing with each one of those and where are the 4 categories they fit in. So where you start with is a spreadsheet. Okay, it is a very complicated process. I can't imagine managing, if you have more than a few hundred posts, how to manage all that content and get it all organized and put action steps on everything without a spreadsheet. So you want to start with a spreadsheet. What I did to get every post and page on my site onto the spreadsheet is I had my tech guy do a database dump. And if you've ever done a WordPress database dump, I'm assuming most of us here are on WordPress, what you get is just a bunch of numbers. Okay, your database stores all your content by numbers, and so you get these links that are numbers. That's how WordPress actually works. So then you have to click on the links and you find out what the post is in terms of the title and the actual category that it's in and how the URL is that a user would see. So what I'd do is I'd start with that database, then I added the titles, and then I added the URLs as a user would see so I could see what I was working with. So I'm taking the base spreadsheet and now I'm starting to add columns to it to add greater clarity. So those were the next 2 I added. And then what I did was I took the whole thing, because it comes through just in a numbered order. It has no rhyme or reason to your menu structure or anything. So in order to make sense of it, then I organized it all by my menu structure. So I moved all the rows around until it started to mimic my menu structure, so it was intuitive for me to go through and got everything paired up. And then you start reviewing it. You just start going through them post by post, page by page, and you review everything in your site. You start with your brand relevance. Is it on brand or off brand? That's a category killer right there. If it's off brand, get rid of it. I'd look at the traffic and the social media interests, as I said earlier. And then you can add other criteria that are important to you. Some people might have other criteria that they care about, but that was pretty much enough for me. I kept it simple, and it was very effective. So then what you do is you start adding additional columns to it. So once you get it all organized, you move it around to match your menus, then you can start adding additional columns of information so you can start making your decisions. So if I saw posts that need to be combined into a single pillar article, and because I've always written long body content, I actually didn't have that problem. I had the opposite problem. What I had done was I had taken long body content, I had separated it into post 1, post 2, post 3, where I'd break it into 3 because everybody convinced me I was supposed to have shorter posts. So I was actually taking those sections of what was originally a long article to begin with and just combining them into a single. And when you do that, what you want to do is you want to decide where it's going to go in your menu structure, in your hierarchy. So you put that one there, and then you take and bring the rows up and pair them together, and then add a column called combined and combine them. And you can see visually what all the posts are that you're combining to put them together into a single. And the next thing you can do is you can create a column noting all the articles you want to delete. So I had a whole column of just delete, 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 everything I was going to get rid of. And then you have a column for how much traffic, so you can see at a glance how much traffic each post is getting, how much social media attention it's gotten. And then I added a column which is for my use because I was going through the entire site top to bottom, and I knew I was going to have, in my menus, I was going to have a thing called Todd's Favorites, as well as Most Popular. And so as I was going through, I was noting ones that I thought would fit that. So again, you can personalize it to your needs depending on what you're doing with yours. So you just add columns, rows, move stuff around, get it all organized. And the goal is you want every single page and post on your site to be identified as a keep, an improve, a redo or consolidate, and a delete, okay? So you want everyone identified so that you know exactly where you're going to go. And now you've got your action steps. So then when you start to implement it, what you want to do is you want to start from the bottom up. You do the easiest stuff first. So I just said earlier how I did 150 deletes in one day. Okay, that's the easiest action step to take is delete and 301 redirect. And it's
Can you explain what a 301 is there a plugin that you can use that'll do that for you, or do you have to?
yeah, okay, so the question is how do you do a 301 redirect? It depends on your hosting company and it depends on your technical sophistication, how you want to do it. There's multiple ways it can be done. So some themes allow you to code a 301 redirect right into the old post. That's considered by most experts to be an inferior way. Okay, like I'm hosted at a place where they have NGINX servers and whatever it's called, and they want it held at the server level. And so it's considered quicker and more stable and all that. And so I actually have to give it to my hosting company. So I gave them a batch file of all my 301 redirects. And you have to code them in a certain way and everything, they'll instruct you on it. So there's multiple ways in which you can do a 301 redirect. Leslie, did you have a question?
I was trying to find out if the Yoast SEO plugin is like a premium version that uses the it actually uses the 301 redirect for UI.
Great. So Leslie was just chiming in and sharing that in the Yoast SEO plugin, if you have the premium version, that it will actually ask you to do a 301 redirect as part of deleting a post. So that's another tool that can be used. Quick question.
Would it work just as well to, instead of deleting, just to no follow the post?
To what?
No follow the post?
No follow the post. So I'm not familiar with that. You mean just let it go and it dies to a 404 error? No follow is a link. I've never heard of no following a post. I suppose you could do that. I've never dealt with that. I haven't run into it. To me, it boils down to a 404 or a 301. But maybe there's another thing for that that I'm not aware of. Okay. All right. So you start with the easiest stuff first. Okay? And that's the deletions and the redirects. And that covers a vast gamut. And then the advantage to that is what that allows you to do is clear all those rows out of your spreadsheet, right? Because now they're gone. They're not on your site. So now you've tightened up your spreadsheet and you've got your action steps narrowed down. Okay, so the next thing I go to is rewriting the small post into single pillar posts. Because again, you're doing the easiest stuff first. You're trying to get the most bang for your time. And the final thing is what I'm still working on. I'm probably 95% through this process, okay? I've still got a lot of pillar posts that I'm converting over time, and I'm using it to provide fresh content to my readers over the next year and a half or so while I'm building out my membership sites. It's just stuff I don't have to write now. So we can complain it's a lot of work, but it can also be a savings grace. It can reduce your workload. Okay, so now it's up to you. Now it's up to you. You've got the basic ideas. You've got a complete action checklist from the slides. It's a decision you need to make around what you want to stand for. Do you want to stand for quality? Do you want to take the effort to edit your site, just as you would a book or a post? And is there an easier way to get the result that's offered here? I don't know of one. And I can say from having done it, yes, it was a lot of work, way more than I ever imagined. And standing on the other side of it, I'm so thankful it's done now, because I'm done with my yeah buts. So that's it. Thank you very much. Yeah, we got time for a few questions, please.